Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our risk and compliance webinar series at Anitech. Just give it another minute, wait for a few more people to start and then get started. Okay, all right, we've got a few attendees. Welcome. I'm going to get started. It's 11 a.m. It's a short series of webinars that we're going to be running at Anitech, and so welcome everyone. So for those new joinees, good morning. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on introduction to risk. We're actually going to be talking about risk and compliance and the latest trends in risk management. My name is Anita Patturajan, and I'll be your host and guide through today's session. And this is going to be a really informal session. And I want to introduce myself. I'm the director and CEO at Anitech. Some of you may have met me as customers. Some of you may have not, but I extend a really warm welcome to you all. We're going to be putting together a series of webinars at Anitech and really connecting with our customers over some of the activities we do. So I'm really pleased to be here today to present on risk. Okay, so today, a quick breakdown on what we're going to be covering. So we're going to first start off with understanding a little bit about risk management, and we'll be delving into the fundamentals of risk and risk management and why it's crucial for your organization or you as an individual. We'll be looking at key concepts of risk, and we'll explore the different types of risks and their impact on decision making, and we'll also walk through the risk management process. Now, apologies to any risk management professionals on the call, but we're just going to start with the basics today. So we're going to be talking about the systematic process of how we identify, assess, and mitigate risks. We'll also, most importantly, I think, talk about the current trends and what we are seeing from a consulting point of view with our clients. And we'll be able to share some of that information with you and what's coming up in the field of risk management. And we'll have a QA session at the end, and we'll also be giving you an opportunity to consider automating your risk. So welcome. Now, just some etiquette on Teams. I know many of you have been participating in different webinars, I'm sure, but feel free, comfortable. If you want to have your video on, video off, that's fine. And there'll be some time for questions down the track. All right, let's talk about why risk matters. Why do we care? In today's really dynamic and interconnected world, uncertainties are inevitable. Whether you're an individual making decisions or you're a large organization, and navigating business challenges, understanding and managing risk is key, achieving your goals while minimizing potential setbacks. So what is the definition of risk? So in the context of our world today, it's often generally defined as the effect of uncertainty. If you look at from an ISO 7001 or any of the ISO standards, and most importantly the 31000 standard, risk is defined as the effect of uncertainty. In the general context, often people view it and it's defined as a potential for harm or loss, and often it is a function of possibility and consequence. So that likelihood and consequence, which we'll cover a bit more in later. So it's really, there's a lot more conversation happening about positive risks, and those are often termed as opportunities within business. And it's a fundamental concept. If you're running a business, if you're a health and safety manager, if you're a risk and compliance manager in your business, it's a fundamental concept across very number of organizational functions. It's not just in occupational health and safety or environment or quality teams. It's now effectively a conversation across management teams, finance teams, and it's a key part of project management, change management, and executive decision making. So, and when we talk about risk, I would like to start with really about risk, examining risk tolerance in a little aspect, because I think this is something that's not well understood. Often everyone launches straight into a risk management process, but risk tolerance is all about what you as an individual or your organization is comfortable taking on. So it's a nuanced concept, and it's influenced by factors such as your personal goals, could be financial capacity as a business, or willingness to navigate certain uncertainties. The best way to describe this is sometimes really simple, like a simple thing like crossing a road. If you think about imagining you at a pedestrian crossing, some of you may feel comfortable when the red's flashing to walk and cross, and you'll look left and look right, and you'll make a decision based on where the car's at, where the truck's at, where it's safe to walk, and you'll walk. But there are others who will not take that decision to walk. They will stay exactly where they are. They'll wait for the green pedestrian light to come in. So it's risk tolerance really influenced by factors such as the environment that you work in or you operate in, your inherent personality, your behavior. Some people do have high tolerance levels for risk, and they will take decisions that will be more risky than others. So that behavior or personality kicks in. And the other factors, of course, your life and your professional experiences. So whatever experience you've had as part of your life journey is going to influence you in taking those risk-based decisions at the time. So therefore, it's really subjective. So how often have we heard when we do risk assessments with our clients, there's a lot of subjective banter around, well, I'd classify it as a low or a medium risk, when someone else will say, no, I consider that as a high risk. So it's really, really subjective and really difficult to pin down unless effective training is implemented in organizations and understanding this concept about that everyone's risk tolerance is different. And it's really important to consider that fact when you're implementing risk programs in your business. Now, let's talk about the key aspects of risk. Now, before I go into actually the aspects, I wanted to give you guys an example of what risk tolerance actually looks like. So I'll go back a slide. I visited a manufacturing site for a safety compliance audit recently, and on behalf of management, they wanted to review their operational practices to make sure that they were compliant to the regulations. It was a health and safety and environmental audit, and that had been a recent injury at this manufacturing plant where a machine operator had put his hand in a moving and rotating machinery to check a part, and unfortunately injured his hand as a result. He nearly lost his hand, quite a significant injury, and therefore was on lost time incident, and he was off work. Now, when we were reviewing that injury and incident, the background and looking at what has gone wrong, the site supervisor was quite scathing about the operator, and it kept repeating, well, he's been here 10 years, the operator should have known better. I've done my incident report, need to train these guys on how to do this risk assessment again. I noticed that they'd put in a metal guard that had been fabricated by the workshop and was now in place, which was not in place before. And I said, why did you not put the guard, why did you not guard the plant earlier? The plant was old, observed the operator and the site supervisor, and they said, well, we've never had an injury in this plant or machine before. All the usual types of excuses. And as he observed, truck rolled in, he got into the forklift and drove off without even wearing a seatbelt, observing the usual safety practices. And I was just interested to think about the behavior. So this is risk tolerance, and his level of risk tolerance was definitely a lot higher than his management team. His management team, however, would disagree. So what they were effectively doing is setting up a risk and compliance committee to improve decision making at all functional levels within the business. And this was part of the first step in doing a safety and compliance audit across the business to make sure the business was going to be aligned, whatever they do. So perception can sometimes disconnect management and operational staff, and there again, that subjective nature. So if you really want to improve risk across the business, it's really important to consider behavioral safety and educating the workforce about risk in the workplace and keeping it simple, I think, is the key. Not trying to, there's whole PhD degrees you could study in creating from risk and have a number of different qualifications, but I think it's really important to keep it simple so your staff follow the journey with putting in a risk management process. So we talked about what risk meant, again, that uncertainty and definition, and also has the potential for harm or loss. So again, really, when we talk about uncertainty, it's a key aspect of risk. It's really all about the future events. Often outcomes can be unpredictable and unknown. I mean, there's a risk involved. So it's really about predicting what the future is going to look like when you do a risk assessment. So things like climate change, financial risks often play a big part in when we're doing assessments around this. Now, if you look at potential for harm or loss, risk implies that the possibility of undesirable consequences, injury, damage to property, all of these could be quite costly. And it really helps in defining why businesses are spending so much time and effort in putting together their programs. Really, then we'll look at why in a bit more detail. Probability. So it's, again, not just about the existence of a potential threat, but also involves the likelihood of the threat materializing. So understanding the probability of different outcomes is crucial in assessing risks. So, we know we have, many of you have already used risk matrices in your risk management procedures. Probably many of you are familiar with your risk assessments as well. Probability and consequence plays a big part. Now, risk is also very context dependent. That means that it can vary from organization to organization. In one business risk could be considered acceptable may not be acceptable in another business. So again, the context of what you do and how you operate is really critical. Now, the term volatility is mentioned more in financial sectors where, market rates, interest rates, all of these could have an impact on business operations. So again, more technically used in financial sense. And of course, the key part of risk is the management aspect. So you can do all of this understanding, but the most important critical part is those controls. So this following a process. So identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks. So that risk management is the critical part. And to basically, ward off adverse events. Now, trade-offs. Basically, if you're looking off in terms of decision making, there's often a trade-off between risk and reward. Most companies choose to do this process because they want to achieve a place where they're rewarded as an organization, whether it is a financial or whether it's from an employee well-being. There's a trade-off for doing this risk management process and avoiding people getting injured. All of these are trade-offs. So their drive and also customer engagement. These all drive why we do this. Now, this is a typical risk score calculator. I just wanted to share that. This is your typical 5x5. So it sort of summarizes the traditional model, if you look at the ISO 31000 standard, sort of formulates the methodology. So a typical risk score calculator. Now let's talk about the types of risk. So we often see in the environment there's operational risk. So this is where failures in systems and processes. So businesses often spend a lot of money putting policies and procedures as part of their systems to control risk. Your operational controls around your plant and equipment or your environmental aspects, like waste. But what we find often is that when there are failures in procedures, things still go wrong. So that's related to operational risk. Reputational risk. Now, this is basically the risk to of damage to an organization's reputation. So, for example, we're seeing what's happening with Qantas and how all the media coverage around the lack of all the failures that they've had in the last couple of years during the pandemic, and there's been issues around customers and legislation and fair work and their people. So it's suffered enormous reputational loss and cost. It's going to cost the money heaps. So this can be a huge adverse impact for businesses that really want to avoid reputational risk damage. Environmental risks. So the risk of negative impacts on businesses due to environmental factors. So could be natural disasters. Often companies may get, and I know some of our customers have had EPA notices that have come through on environmental noise monitoring and have been asked to do support reports. So again, very, very important to consider. There could be legal risks as well. Again, Qantas is again another good example of where there's a number of inquiries, legal action being taken to review the process of how they manage their customers and their reward program and all how they treated their staff. So can have a snowball effect. Of course, technology risk can be a huge issue as well. So the type of risk that most companies are concerned about currently, like the Optus outage that we experienced this last week, and Latitude Financial. So having a cybersecurity hack through their third-party vendor platform resulted in loss of personal data to a number of customers. So again, this can be a significant issue. And supply chain risks. So we're seeing another example of this right now in the DP World instance where, again, a hack has resulted in, and they're going through that, but there's an issue with, unloading and loading of products from the docks. So all these are different types of risks. Of course, there are more, but I just thought I'll cover the main ones that we often experience in our business. Now, there was someone's hand up. I just noticed. Does someone have a question? Do you want to ask me?
I think Mr. Yusuf.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just on that, you've talked about, mitigating the risk and all that. So when we try to provide all of this information to the higher management level, and then sometimes they work on around not achieving what's exactly wanted by the employees to prevent any incidents or hazards that they have on site. What is the next thing there? How do we convince them to make sure that we need to get that done and implemented in place?
That's a great question, Yusuf. This is something many
for me sometimes I struggle. With the getting all like what we are required to get it done. It's just to do with the budgeting, making sure that we have the right resources for it as well. So I want to understand from any of you guys, how do you approach that with your higher management level team there?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
To the network. I can maybe first put it out to the team if there's a number of people of you. Is this speak to any one of you? on the call, if how you've managed that issue, how you escalate to management. Does anyone want to speak? Oh yes, Jen, do you want to tell us how?
Yes, thank you. I think how I've managed it in the past when you're competing against operational budget as opposed to your administrative budget is that if you outline all of the legislative requirements that the organisation are bound by, and then the implications of not actually adhering to those requirements, and that's the financial, the legislative basis around all of that. But then you've also got your human factor that you put into that as well. And as you were saying before, you know, the lost time, it's not only the lost time, it's the training that you put into that person and how long they're out. So if I find if it's the bottom dollar, if you can give them that information in financial terms, they start to listen then.
Yeah, very good answer. Thank you. And I can give you a little bit of insight into my own experience, and that would be a business case. So if you've ever done a business case for any improvements and you know that there are risks, and I would often quantify that with penalties and then share that. And that's all you can do. You can leave it with your upper management, and then they can take it from there. You can't forcibly make anyone do anything, but from an operational role, you can put it forward. And really, I focus on the penalties of breaches to legislation, and potentially also if there's like director level responsibilities that they have to meet. And I often go into the OH&S Acts or the Work Health and Safety Acts, and what the potential breaches look like if you don't follow through on these recommendations, because you're the professionals in this space and you know what you're putting forward is actually a requirement. So, Yusuf, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Jen. Thank you guys also for elaborating more on that. That was a good thing to add there too as well. But one thing I would like to discuss with you guys, just to get a feedback on that too. Once we have made the best practice, the work instructions, we train the managers. Is it the responsibility of the department manager to ensure that his staff are operating safely, or is it the health and safety coordinator duty to make sure that these are done correctly through conducting audits and all the checks that they have to done on on a monthly basis, quarterly basis? Who has the more responsibility of making sure it needs to be done correctly? Is it the operational side of it, the managers of the department, or more towards the health and safety officers? Thank you.
Yeah, very good question again. We've got a lot of health and safety managers and risk and compliance managers on the call. Does anyone want to answer that? I can jump in the end. Majid?
Yes, thank you. Definitely, this is a good question. And for that reason, as per the ISO 45001, there is a RACI matrix. So each organization, they need to have a RACI matrix to give everyone the responsibility and accountability. As a HSE manager, you need to create the system, you need to communicate it to the teams, train them, but it's responsibility of the direct supervisor to ensure it's being implemented on the site. So that's my input. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, very good comment. I would agree with that. You, as the health and safety professional in your business, you'd be responsible, obviously, to put together and support your business with your policies and procedures and train them on, on the various aspects of the system. Of course, it's the direct manager's responsibility, and the responsibilities go all the way up. The RACI chart is a formal way of lining up the accountabilities and the responsibilities, but leadership at the end also have a significant responsibility to implement and provide resources. Okay, all right, and we can explore some of this down the track as well. So, okay, So talking about, so what do companies, again, I think some of this is pretty straightforward. Really, the regulatory landscape in Australia is significant. We've been counting, actually, as part of one of our initiatives for regulatory compliance, we've counted up to 95,000 pieces of legislation and still counting. So we're a very, I think, compliance-driven country, and as such, there's a lot to do for business. So it really, part of the structured program is to also gain competitive advantages. Businesses do this to protect their assets, the business continuity, and as we discussed before, their reputation. And often we find that companies that manage their risks effectively and often experience innovation and growth. And of course, they have staff retention and well-being at the core of their culture. So if we jump into the risk methodology definition, I just wanted to quickly talk about, and most of you would be familiar with this. Now, this is at Anitech, we use the ISO 31000 as the standard that we use to deliver our programs. So it's basically about all from establishing the context to the risk assessment process. The most key parts are the risk identification, your risk analysis, and your evaluation, and of course your risk controls. WorkSafe has been talking a lot about simplifying the steps to, the 4 steps to make sure that you put risk controls at the core of risk management, because I effectively find it often as a team when we go and do audits, we find many companies focusing on risk identification really well, but they don't do the controls very well. Often they're leaning on, if you're doing health and safety, for example, leaning on procedural controls as opposed to technical and engineering controls based on the hierarchy of controls. So often there's opportunities for companies to improve that. And monitoring and review is also really critical. So you've got a risk program. If you don't monitor and follow up and review that through audits, it's not an effective program. So it's really important that you do consider that as part of your risk methodology. There are some new theories and experiences coming online around culture as well. And so anyway, so there's the basic processes. Now, if you're familiar with ISO 9001 or any of the standards, you'd be familiar with this. Again, there's the risk methodology that I showed you with the 5x5 matrix is a qualitative risk assessment. And as I said before, it is subjective. There's also quantitative risk assessment. Some companies are more advanced and they do have really more complex systems in place with calculators. And I just wanted to quickly, I know we're running short of time, so we've got 3 more minutes. So I'm going to quickly talk to you about some tools and that you could potentially use. Of course, the classic Excel, let's admit it, most of us have it, and maybe some of you may still be using it. And if you need any help with that, let us know. If you want any templates, we're happy to share that with you as our customers. Now, Anitech also has Lahibo as a risk and compliance management software, which can be used to automate your risk. There's also on the market, there's lots of other tools like enterprise risk management software, automating operations through invoicing. So there's a number of tools. You can Google it, and there's lots that come up. And GRC software, many companies are resorting to use GRC software as well. So that if I just jump quickly to what's happening in the environment, we've got 2 minutes. Organizations everywhere, and we're starting to see this when we go out to our clients, they're looking for a better way and automation of risk management, and they're not wanting to use people as the way of monitoring risk continuously. Real-time monitoring of risk is starting to take shape, and often some of the short-term trends we're seeing is people are using technology to drive their risk management programs, and they're using agile risk management. So that means continuous monitoring of their risks. So it could be environmental aspects like waste or energy, could be around injuries and incidents monitoring. So there's a lot of technology coming into play right now. And of course, cybersecurity is ballooning in the industry due to all the potential incidents and the incidents happening. So of course, a big focus on software around that as well. There's a big focus on businesses on ESG right now and managing these risks around the social and governance aspect on top of the environmental risks as well. And there's focus on supply chain. Again, some of the explanations around how they manage that whole supply chain, whether it's product delivery or to their customers or their own vendor management is becoming part and parcel of all the different certifications. So everything's actually now integrating, and there's more opportunities for business to integrate into a single system. And also behavioral risk management. So big focus on that happening right now. People are actually engaging psychologists and understanding working with health and safety professionals to come up with programs for businesses to drive that safety culture. Now, I'm going to share this slide with you afterwards. So there's some, this is just a summary. So Deloitte in the US have put together a whole list of top 10 trends, and a lot of it is around AI, machine learning, concepts coming into play through the automation tools that people are using for risk. So the traditional forms of the risk registers are going away to more real-time monitoring, and basically just businesses are becoming more innovative, and really anticipating lots and lots of disruption in the future. So I just want to give you my top tips. My first tip would be set up a risk management committee if you haven't got one, with governance. Establish reporting structures. My second tip is automate your risk management. If you can, please invest. I'll ask your business to invest and use it. I'm seeing too many companies buying software but not using it effectively. It's a waste of my time and money, but there are really good software out there, including our own. So invest in it, and train your staff on what risk is and how to effectively assess risk. Really important to do that. Conduct behavioral training for staff. Conduct safety and compliance audits annually. It's really important that you provide to your management the real status of the risk management program looks like. So if your executive team are not listening to you, they'll listen to the third-party consultant. Provide effective tools for risk management to staff and access to operational procedures. This is really critical. If you've got field staff, if you've got people on the ground doing different activities in manufacturing, construction, whichever industry you're from, it's really important to provide the right tools. Whether it's, and too many people are still showing manual forms right now. So effectively, as I said, invest in some automation tools to get that moving. Report to management on risks. And, if you're in a health and safety role, please, do your monthly report, put in what are the risks that you're mitigating and what are you supporting as the risk and compliance manager for the business? How are you improving that risk landscape? Management will see that and they will appreciate that. So do that even if it's not asked of you, make a report as part of your monthly reporting. And get help. I mean, there's a lot of resources out there. There's free resources, as well as there's books and risk professionals such as us at Anitech. So feel free to contact us if you need help. We're here to help you. Okay, some good books. Definitely would recommend The Field Guide to Understanding Human Error by Sidney Dekker. He's one of my favorite authors. And there's a whole bunch of books. I'm going to share that with you if you're interested. And just as a last finish off, I just wanted to provide an opportunity for our customers. If you would like to automate your risk, talk to us. We're happy to give you a trial of Lahibo, our software, and you can request a demo from us or email me. I'll share that in the chat. and I'm happy to organize that, and you can move away from your Excel sheets forever. I promise you. Now, thank you again. The next webinar is going to be on compliance management. I'm going to be planning for that in December, and we're going to be talking about how to align risk and compliance management, and also help you with some tips on complying with legislation, how to get through and navigate your compliance profile of your business. Yeah, thank you. Any questions? Sorry, I do understand we're 4 minutes over.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you. All right. Is there any other questions? If not, that's fine. You've got our details. Contact us, and we're happy to help in any way, shape, or form. And we'll look forward to meeting you again at the next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Bye.
Bye.